That wouldn't help security for America, would it?
Why and why not?
We shut down all your bases overseas?
We can get anywhere. We have nuclear missiles. When you look at, okay, let's reverse this for a moment, Piers. We don't like Hugo Chavez very much because he nationalized oil. He kicked corporations out of Venezuela. That's why we don't like him. Now, he's got a lot of money. How would the United States feel if Hugo went, say, by Palm Springs and bought 100 acres of land and moved the Venezuelan military into there?
So you're saying that the mere presence of American bases is inflammatory?
Yeah. Why do we have bases in foreign countries?
Well, the argument is to try and prevent uprisings in these areas.
Or is it the opposite? Colonization and world dominance. I could make that argument, too, for it.
Has it been healthy for America to be the #1 superpower for so long? And is it actually, perversely, could it be helpful now that places like China are emerging as
competitors? I think it's very easy to see what's going on. The United States is following textbook example of the Roman Empire, getting itself involved now in 3 wars.
When you served in Vietnam,
yep.
You didn't, I don't think, actually have live combat there, right? But you were serving. Is that correct?
I don't talk. When I got back, I'm a Navy SEAL. When I got back from my service overseas on my first deployment, the My Lai massacre had just happened, or was just in the headlines. I was brought in by my commanding officer, my entire team, and we were ordered. We were to discuss nothing of anything we did or any ops we were on, because normally the SEALs are all part of a top secret operations. So I do not discuss anything I did in the military, other than to say I served honorably and received an honorable discharge, and I showed up, which is more than what George Bush can say.
Yeah, I mean, the point I was going to make is, what lesson did you learn from being in the military about the reality of war?
Probably the biggest lesson I learned happened in 2004 when I was teaching at Harvard, and McNamara came through and admitted the Gulf of Tonkin incident never happened. That was the incident, the false flag operation, that got us into the Vietnam War with ground troops over something that never occurred. They made it up. Well, if you start studying history closer, you find that most all wars are based on false flag operations to get the people, to convince the people that they're under attack in some way so that they will support the wars.
I mean, do you think, as a matter of principle, as with Vietnam, as you're seeing in Libya, that America and the West generally should stay out of civil war?
Yeah.
That let countries fight it out if they want to?
Yep.
Could be a more sensible and, dare I say it, cheaper foreign policy?
Well, I don't know. It would certainly be cheaper. And again, what made us the policemen of the world?
What do you do then about somewhere like Iran, where they have uprisings in Iran, they have a form of civil war, and the bad guys get in charge? The extremists take hold of a country, and then they become a genuine threat, not just to America, but particularly to Israel,
That's true, but
other countries.
Look at all the bad guys we support, simply because they're our puppets.
Well, support stroke control, perhaps.
Well, but well, let me put it to you this way. I was in the Philippines the day that Ferdinand Marcos declared martial law and became a dictator. He didn't do it without our permission. We gave him permission to become a dictator. Because what? He was our boy. He was our pawn. As long as they answer to our corporations, we're good with them.
But isn't that the nature of the beast? Isn't that the way it has to be?
Does it?
Well, the alternative is you just let every country get on with it. And as you
shouldn't countries determine their own destiny?
Possibly, but as I say, you end up then with the possibility of further Irans, which is dangerous to world peace. No one disputes that. You have a huge country run by a guy who's publicly said that he wants to annihilate Israel. These are dangerous people who then have the power to do what they say they're going to do. That can't be allowed to happen, can it? Isn't that why America and the West generally has to do dirty deals with the devil occasionally?
Do they? I don't know.
Well, is it the alternative is just to have open season everywhere? Where America has no influence over any part of the world? That can't be healthy, surely.
Well, it isn't America having the influence. It's the national corporations have the influence. We're the puppets to them.
What would you do about oil, then?
What do you mean? What would I do?
Well, for example, by your yardstick, if you don't go and get involved in places like Egypt, when there's an uprising as there was, and you get extremists in charge who decide they want to punish America, and they want to get together with the Syrians and the Yemeni and the Iranians, and they're going to stop any oil coming out of the Middle East to America. Then what?
Well,
that would devastate your economy.
No,
here,
not necessarily.
And it would devastate
I don't
all
know.
Americans.
I live in Minnesota, and we don't get any oil from there. Ours comes from Canada. The point I'm making is there's oil all over the world.
But the world is running out.
But our dependence, don't you think we need to shed our dependence on it? All the money we're spending in these wars to get oil, if we turned around and spent that on solar energy and moving that forward, things of that nature forward, the amount of money we're spending to secure this oil, if we took half of it and just spent it on alternative energy, we could break this resistance, and then we wouldn't be compelled to have to go over there and insure.
Do you
want to know why we're in Afghanistan?
I'm fascinated.
It came to me 6 months ago when a story came out that they found a vein of lithium there that they say is worth $1 trillion. Now, what is lithium used for? Every cell phone, every computer, and soon-to-be electric cars. Yeah, so why don't they just, Piers, tell me the truth?
No, but Jesse, that's not...
We're going there to get lithium so that we can live like we live. Don't sit and try to sell me we're to give democracy to the world.
Jesse, it sounds a bit like you've been on lithium. Come on, you can't seriously imagine we've gone to war in Afghanistan over lithium. Come on. Be serious.
I am serious.
My brother just served a 7-month tour of Afghanistan.
I am serious.
He did not risk his life for lithium.
What did he risk it for?
He risked it because everybody knows that Osama bin Laden was training people to commit atrocities in Afghanistan.
We all know that?
That's a fact.
You're talking to the wrong guy.
Well, you're a conspiracy theorist.
I don't believe 9/11.
But you don't believe in anything.
No, I believe...
You believe everything has an ulterior motive.
Not true. Not true at all.
I've read your book.
Not true at all.
Let me have a short break. When I come back, I'm going to throw at you a few stories. I want to see what you think happened. Let's test these conspiracy theories.
All right. How come 2,000 architects and engineers met in San Francisco demanding a new investigation?
So, Jesse, you're the first guest I've had where we're still arguing in the breaks. Let's get to your conspiracy theories.
I'm unique.
Let me ask you.
Sure.
John F. Kennedy's assassination.
Yep.
Who did that?
It was done by William Harvey, who was the head of the CIA's assassination unit at that time. David Morales was directly involved in it. He likewise is the gentleman who killed Che Guevara down in Bolivia in '67, where they put him up against a firing wall and killed him and shot and killed him. Morales was part of that. I believe that because I saw, heard, and read a confession from E. Howard Hunt on a deathbed to his son. And when he confessed, it was not a confession of remorse. It was a confession of pride. He wanted the world to know that we helped you out. We killed John Kennedy, this communist sympathizer.
But Jesse, aren't you being slightly naive? People can say anything on a deathbed to immortalize themselves. When I die, I might say, you know what? I don't want anyone to know about my long-standing love affair with Elizabeth Taylor. Yeah. Doesn't mean anything, does it?
I can be slightly naive, except the fact that you're not going to convince me he could make those shots.
Why?
Because I tried them, and I'm an expert marksman. He wasn't. And I couldn't do them. I couldn't even work. The fastest I could work, the Manlichuk Arcano bolt, was 8.5 seconds. And they're telling me he got 3 shots off in 6 seconds with that bolt action piece of crap weapon. I tried it. We simulated the whole thing. I couldn't do it. And I qualified expert at age 50 when I was governor of Minnesota yet.
Did Neil Armstrong land on the moon?
I don't know.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think he did.
Why would you believe that?
Because we have the technology to get there.
We have the technology to investigate an assassination.
Sure we do, but we don't.
Well, we have thoroughly.
When a coup d'etat takes place, there can be no trial. There can be no investigation. You want to know another reason why it's a farce? I'll tell you why personally. My mother, before she died, she had a big trunk. And when she died, in the bottom of that trunk, she had every Minneapolis paper of that weekend that John Kennedy was killed. This was in Minneapolis's Monday morning paper. That means this is '63, so it had to go out early in the afternoon of Sunday to be in the Monday morning paper. And you know what was down in the bottom? Dallas police declare case closed.
Come on,
Now,
Jesse.
it's right in the paper.
Jesse.
Oswald, Kennedy's killed on Friday. Ruby kills Oswald on Sunday, and the Dallas PD says the case is closed. They haven't interviewed a witness. There was no confession, but the case is closed.
Well, newspapers...
Come on, Piers. What type of investigation is that?
I have never, ever heard anybody suggest the investigations were closed on the Monday within hours.
It was in the paper. Dallas police
you believe everything
declared...
you read in the papers?
I did then.
I have rarely encountered a man who believes less about what he reads in the papers. And now you want me to base your whole conspiracy theory
Not my whole.
on the fact that you've read one line in your mother's newspaper from the time?
I've studied John Kennedy for 25 years, Piers. I'm not basing this on reading one line in the paper. I'm basing this on reading everything I could get my hands on.
Let's move to 9/11. Your theory of 9/11 is what?
My theory of 9/11 is that we certainly, at best, we knew it was going to happen. They allowed it to happen to further their agenda in the Middle East and go to these wars.
So just to clarify, President George Bush knew that 9/11 was going to happen, that 3,000 people were going to get murdered.
They had all the information. If you looked at the NSA documents, if you look, well, put it to you this way. The August 6th memo was pretty clear.
Yeah, but do you genuinely believe, Jesse Ventura, that President George W. Bush knew 9/11 was going to happen?
No.
Why do you say it then?
No.
Well, why do you say it?
But I believe Dick Cheney knew it.
Really?
Yep.
You believe he knew it was going to happen?
I believe they had a good... Well, why did John Ashcroft quit flying commercial planes that summer and switch only to private planes? Why did that happen?
You don't honestly believe these people knew. I don't believe you believe that. You don't honestly think Dick Cheney knew it was going to happen. You can't do.
Do you really believe,
Piers?
It's not irrational.
I said it's not rational.
Excuse me. Do you really believe that evil people can't be in charge of governments? If you do, go talk to the Germans. They know a little about that evil people can get in charge. The governments are run by people. People can be bad.
So Dick Cheney's involved, Ashcroft's involved, all these people got together and planned 9/11. Come on, it's madness.
Oh, that's madness. But you'll fully accept that 19 Islamic radicals armed with box cutters taking orders from a guy in a cave in Afghanistan could defeat our multi-billion-dollar air defense system, which the Russians couldn't do.
Jesse, that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened.
Really?
Unfortunately, they exposed a massive flaw in Homeland Security.
And what was it?
The flaw was that these guys had been training and often aiming to go one way, aiming to land planes in a certain manner, in fact, not even land them, wanted to take off but not land. All these were clues that this was a weird set of circumstances. I'm afraid that's exactly what happened. And the trouble with being a conspiracy theorist, I've got great respect for you, and your book's very readable. The problem is, once you start buying into these theories, you never stop. And with the internet these days, there's a theory about everything.
Yeah.
Do you believe Princess Diana was murdered?
No, I don't look into that.
Well, what do you think?
I don't know. I haven't studied it.
Isn't the tendency of a conspiracy theorist it breeds other conspiracies?
No. I only go into things I study. I've studied 9/11 for 3.5 years now. And it's my expert opinion. As a demolition expert, I was trained by the best the U.S. government has. I served 3 years on Underwater Demolition Team 12. 2 years I was attached to SEAL Team 1. And when I look at the buildings and how they fall and the way they fell, they couldn't have come down without being assisted in some manner. And then I counter...
You don't believe when two large planes hit the World Trade Center, hit both towers, and they explode, that couldn't bring down two buildings?
No.
And that the debris couldn't bring down a third building?
The Empire State Building was hit by a plane and it didn't collapse.
It was a tiny plane that hit the Empire State Building.
No, it wasn't.
Yes,
it
was.
Tiny. Well, the World Trade Center buildings were tested against Boeing 707s, which are bigger than the planes that hit. Well, and the way it was designed, if it was punctured, it was like a